Saloni, you can start.
All right, ma'am. A very good morning to all the participants and our esteemed guest. I, Saloni Dhond, welcome you all to the day 2 of the Faculty Development Program on Social Entrepreneurship Management, sponsored by Atal AICTE, conducted by Vivekanand Education and Society's Institute of Management in association with Research for Resurgence Foundation. It is indeed a privilege to introduce to you all a magnificent personality, Professor C.V. Bakshi, who is a renowned professor of business ethics and corporate strategy. Professor Bakshi has over 35 years of experience in academics. He has also been a visiting faculty of the various reputed business schools of India. Professor Bakshi was the former director of the Management Development Institute, MDI, Gurgaon, and has been associated with MDI for more than 3 decades as a professor in the economics department. He was also a consultant to the SCOPE, Ministry of Heavy Industry and Public Enterprise. His academic interest has been in corporate governance and CSR. He was the chairperson, Center for Corporate Governance, MDI Gurgaon. He was also the editor of MDI Management Journal Vision from 1989 to 1997. He has also published books on corporate governance and CSR. His case on corporate governance at Satyam was published by the ACRC Hong Kong University. He has been associated with renowned institutes like Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai, NIIT University, and many more. With having published more than 250 articles in learned journals and edited books, Professor Bakshi has delivered lectures and imparted knowledge on corporate governance, not just in India, but across the globe. Thus, we all are truly blessed to have Professor Bakshi as our speaker for today. Eager to hear from you, sir. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. You have been very generous, you see. But I don't deserve so much of introduction. Anyway, I will. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
very
sir.
much.
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, okay.
Yes, sir.
So I will, without any further formalities, I will start my discussion. First, let me be grateful to the director of the institute and Dr. Nisha Pandey, the program director, for giving me this platform. A retired professor always looks for a platform, you see. So he gets a platform, he is happy. I don't know about the victims, but at least I am happy. Now, having said this, let us reflect for half an hour or so on first assignment that I have is a public policy, government policy. And immediately I have a habit of, maybe a nasty habit, but I ask more questions than I answer them, you know. So I believe in asking stupid questions. They may get intelligent reply, they may not get, but I'll ask. So my first question is that why government policy is formulated? Why? What is the provocation? Why does government formulate public policy or a policy for industry, agriculture, XYZ? Why? That is the first question we have to answer. The tentative answer to this question is a policy is formulated because either there is a demand for it or government decides on its own that in public interest such a policy may be formulated. So it is both a demand driven and supply driven. But sometimes it can be supply driven. For example, you have an idiotic policy on prohibition in India. In Gujarat, because M.K. Gandhi was born in Porbandar district of Gujarat, various governments have imposed prohibition, as if Gandhi, they have made Gandhi a regional leader. M.K. Gandhi, I understand, was a national leader, not a regional leader. Anyway, but this is also an example of how public policy is formed by political groups. So there can be supply-driven public policy and demand-driven public policy. Secondly, public policy is also necessary to ensure that in future the progress of industry or agriculture, any sector, is encouraged and supported by government. So various economic groups and commercial enterprises will benefit if from now 5 years onward, if we had thought of IT, for example, Dr. Pranjal is here, if we had thought of e-commerce, ERP, 20 years ago, things would have been different in India. But then there is a time lag between innovation and diffusion. So policy on innovation may not be able to keep track of policy of diffusion. Now, of course, last 20 years, we have more research on diffusion of new technology. So policy on innovation, policy on diffusion must go together rather than having a time lead of 20 years, 30 years. And third answer to this question, why public policy, that there are costs and benefits. If you postpone formulation of the policy, there are huge costs, like the agriculture reform. So if you postpone reform, then the cumulative cost to the economy, society, and the environment are much larger, and no government can handle it. For example, population policy, which was never seriously taken by any political group. And therefore, India is suffering, or Africa is suffering, or some other countries have also suffered from this postponement or indifference to formulation. So this is the first question that I'm trying to answer. Why public policy? Now it comes to social enterprise, because that is the topic of this FDP. Is there a policy for social enterprise? I would say, excepting OECD and England, and now partly America, no other country has a policy on social enterprise. Now again, why? Why? Because their number, their outreach is usually limited. Some geographies you have social enterprise, some you don't have. Somewhere you have successful, somewhere you don't have successful. Like that, it's a mix of experience. So therefore, the number is not a viable proposition. Now, if the number is not that large, like SMEs or large industries or family business, then policy may take time to evolve. This is my answer to the second question, that why is there no policy? But in Europe and in England, though they are small countries in terms of population and enterprises, they have been able to pass legislation, create legislation, rules, a legal framework. For example, Italy was one of the first countries to develop a regulation on cooperatives. Cooperatives in Europe are a part of social enterprise. In India, we treat cooperative separate, SME separate. We are a separatist nation. We want to treat everything separately. But in Europe, they said no, cooperative is. Therefore, in my research, what I'm trying to do on social enterprise, I've included public trust, NGOs, and cooperative. We have in India, India is a leader in cooperative, but unfortunately that is not highlighted. If you see NCDC, if you see IFCO, if you see NAFED, HAFED, some of the largest, IFCO has more than 5 crore stakeholders and 36,000 cooperatives. Where will you get this number in Europe or America? Nowhere. So India is a leader, but somehow we have not given enough recognition to this, that they are eminent group of social enterprise. I think this understanding has to be broad-based. Therefore, public policy on cooperatives, on NGOs, public trust, and therefore other types of social enterprises must be synchronized. You can't have retail segregate views on this. You must have a consolidated view that what is the social enterprise if you want to formulate a policy. It generally doesn't happen. The third question that I want to ask, and I think this is my favorite, and Dr. Nisha Pandey knows I have had discussion number of times on various subjects. And that my favorite is also my one of the difficulties that I have with the literature. We will now look at how policy for small enterprise, for social enterprise, is impacted or influenced by stakeholders. So I will take stakeholder theory. What is the role of stakeholders? I'll come to other players also, but because policy is influenced by various groups, the trade unions, So we'll first say, what is the role of stakeholders in public policy, if at all? Now, I have a problem here. This theory was published in 1984 by Professor Freeman in America. It was a theory of business ethics and organization management. It was never a theory of a general management. Ethics and organizational development, management, corporation, large corporations. However, it was refined in 91, 95, and 2005. Various academic improvements have been made, models and all. But I have a problem here, and the problem, because I've taught CSR for 20 years, corporate governance for 20 years, and my discomfort remains, because there is a primary and fundamental distinction between interest groups and stakeholders. Most of us, whether as students of universities or professors or executives of MNCs, we often mix up the two. Interest groups behave in a particular manner to achieve short-term objectives, and they are confined to their self-centered immediate gains from a context or situation. Interest groups are never about sustainable development or value system. All those things is all not necessary. Now, they are the people in majority. So let me explain in a different manner. Interest groups are value claimers. Interest groups are value claimers. They claim values, but they don't contribute. Yes. So there is a question mark on interest groups. When
Good morning.
yes, please.
नहीं आता है.
So can I continue?
Now, please unmute your mic, please. Others, please mute your mic.
Huh?
No, sir. Pranjal, sir.
Should I mute my mic?
No, sir. I'm not telling to you. I'm telling to others so that we can listen you carefully.
No, I have my mic is unmuted.
No, sir. I'm not telling you. I'm telling others to mute
Okay.
mic. Yeah.
So now can I continue?
Yeah. Now, sir, your voice is better. Speak little
Okay.
louder.
All right. I am a soft-spoken man because I have been outshouted in my life,
Oh, sir. Sir, become little not soft spoken now for this 1.5
Okay.
hour.
Okay, I'll try to shout without any success, but I'll try.
Yeah.
Now, interest groups want to claim benefits, but not create value. You know, often I tell my victims in the classroom, कि अखबार फेंकने वाला और अखबार पढ़ने वाला, जो अखबार फेंकता है is a value creator. They delivers newspaper at your doorstep. अखबार पढ़ने वाला 2 आइटम पढ़ के वो अखबार फेंक देता है. He is not a value creator. So let us be clear that interest groups are usually interested in benefits, not sharing cost or creating something for society or something. But stakeholders, if you ever believe yourself that you are a stakeholder, then what is your stake? A financial stake, an emotional stake, a social stake, a political, some stake you must be able to quantify that, yes. Like if you go for a commercial loan, the bank will say 80% will give you, 20 you have to bring, promoters contribute. So there's a stake that 20% of equity finance is my stake. I'm contributing. The stake, now this is the problem with universities, damage is done to buildings, protests are done in the name of free speech, and a lot of unrest is there because university students have no stakes. They want hostel room in 20 rupees. I can't buy bread in 20 rupees. You are not stakeholders. They have no stakes. So therefore, we have to define that now in social enterprise, when talking of government policy, we need to look at what are the stakes of NGOs, public trust, cooperatives, or any other type of social enterprise. For example, you have national mission for women. If you have a national mission for women, then what are the stakes of government? What are the stakes of participants in that national mission, the women entrepreneurs or whoever they are? Unless this is clarified, no government policy can be more realistic. It will be very general, and it won't help. So if you have a policy for public social enterprise, identify and define stakeholders and quantify the stakes. This is where research is lacking, and you are all faculty members. I would welcome you and join the center of VES. You have a center on social enterprise. We can engage in collaborative research. That what is the stakeholder? Is stakeholder theory really applicable to social enterprise? The promoter of the enterprise may be a stakeholder because he commits his private savings, he sacrifices his life. You know the case of Jayashree Industry, Murugappan in 1997. When he started making sanitary napkins in his house, people boycotted him. They village panchayat threw him out. That what is this fellow talking about women's health and all that? No. No, that was 98. But he went out of the village, continued his struggle. Finally, because of his innovation, the social innovation, because of his innovation of this sanitary product, he was recognized eventually. So my point is that social entrepreneur has a stake, financial, emotional, social. But this stake is not reflected in the users of services or products of social enterprise. You know, stakes on both sides, supplier side and demand, those who demand. Now, let me give one more example and close this question of stakeholder. Jamshedpur is the only location in India which a private municipality, Tata Steel. Historically, it was managed by Tata Steel, but now there are public interest litigation that Tata Steel is looking after limited facilities and citizens are not given enough. So it should be a formal municipal corporation under the in 1993, 73rd and 74th Amendment to the Indian Constitution was done. Under that amendment, every government, state government must have formal municipal corporation, a legal company. Jamshedpur doesn't have it. So now the court case is going on. The point is that here the stakeholder theory is a problem. Who takes, which stakeholders Tata Steel is serving and which stakeholders government wants to serve. Now, unless that is clearly demarcated, we do not know. I mean, this is just an allegation. You have to prove with data. Jamshedpur is a very wonderful case study on whether municipal corporations can be social enterprise. We have never thought like this. We condemn BMC. Road repair नहीं करता है, बारिश में flood होता है. Yeah, we have been condemning, but stakeholder का role सिर्फ condemn करने का नहीं. Then you behave like Congress party. खुद तो decision लिया नहीं, अब बीजेपी decision लेती है, तो बीजेपी खराब है. You can't behave like this. If you want to condemn BMC, then you must give an alternative how Bombay Municipal Corporation can improve. But of course, it's the political economy, the politics is involved. But the point is, stakeholders, institutional and individual, both have to match somewhere, equilibrium position or near equilibrium. If these identical things are not there, then there is always a gap. And then there is a conflict. And finally, to close this, why stakeholder theories are important? Because in government policy, there is an understanding of a social issue. What is a social issue? A social issue exists when a legislation is necessary. Take sati, for example, a woman committing after the husband is died. Sati or dowry or child marriage. Now, these examples, there are legislation. You see, without a social issue doesn't exist if there is no legislation. Sexual harassment cases, in 98, Justice Verma gave guidelines. The policy came, sexual harassment in workplace. Supreme Court judgment, 1997. The social issue was identified, a legislation, a policy followed. Policy and legislation go together. Now, if some social issues are identified through legislation, public policy, then social enterprise can be set up in those areas, agriculture, finance, whatever. So this is one area where we need to do research, we need to do consulting, we need to teach. But if you don't teach, you don't do research. You can't just say I'm a faculty doing only research. In this age nahi chalta hai. You have to do research, training, consulting, MDP, whatever. Plus institutional roles. Now, therefore, I welcome, and I'm sure Dr. Nisha Pandey will welcome any collaborative research on how can stakeholders contribute to the success stories of social enterprise? Or are there reasons for failure of social enterprise? Possibly, we do not know. You have to ask this question and conduct some primary database research. And you can't have opinions and views on this because you are faculty members. The second important group which can influence public policy for social enterprise is the regulation, which may be given by regulatory agencies or legislation, judiciary. For instance, as I said, Italy, they have a legal rule on cooperative. That America has recently, last 10 years, separate legislation on benefit corporation. They don't call it social enterprise. They said benefit corporation. This concept came in 2010, where a company has to be registered saying that it will also undertake social enterprise role in writing they have to commit to the regulator. Now, this thing has not come to India. Hopefully, I mean, if, whoever is the next government can look at it, but it is necessary because while social enterprise is a voluntary concept, but still, if it is at the time of registering a company, only one example in India is there, Section 8 company, which was earlier Section 25 in Companies Act, is amended in December 2013. Section 8 companies are those companies in which if that company makes profit, it is plowed back as investment in the company. It is not distributed to shareholders, employees, or promoter. Nobody can claim it. That's why microfinance model failed in India and other countries. That microfinance became too ambitious, too large. It was never designed to be a multinational group. Look at the classic case of SKS Finance in Hyderabad. World Bank, others have made studies, Harvard, because the whole purpose was defeated. I'll discuss that in the next lecture on scaling of enterprise. But the point is that there is a risk of mission drift. Mission drift if the smaller social entrepreneur becomes too ambitious. Now, please remember, you're all faculty members, if you're ambitious, too much ambitious, you have an ethical responsibility to manage that growth. Look at Anil and Mukesh Ambani. Anil has gone, declared bankruptcy, surrendered properties in Bellad Estate and other parts of Bombay. Pledged his personal savings to Singapore court because he had to repay the foreign banks. Look at the contrast in entrepreneurship, entrepreneurial success between two giants, Anil and Mukesh, same group. But it happens. It happens for a variety of reasons. We are not analyzing this. But what I'm saying is that success is to be managed. No MBA school in India, including IIM, I have taught in 6 IIMs and I know, and they did not like when I said this, no IIM, the so-called top schools in India, teach how to manage success. They only talk of turnaround, more finance, more marketing help for industries which are not doing well. They look at the operating part, nuts and bolts, how to help sick industry, non-performing units. But nobody says, how do you manage success? I think small enterprise policy should focus on not just website giving success stories of women and children. And we don't want to celebrate success stories. We want to ensure that small enterprise policy directs us, guides us to replicate the success and create a long-term perspective on this, because this is not happening. This is the problem. And therefore, I strongly request and suggest that we take a view on this. We take a view on this and say that the public policy for social enterprise must look at the little long-term perspective and clearly identify the role of regulator, judiciary, because certain rules are made by courts, maybe out of public interest litigation or whatever. The next important group, which I believe has a role to play, is NGOs. Unfortunately, in India, NGOs we are not taking seriously. There is no syllabus for NGO management. I have never come across any institution taking NGO seriously. So we need a curriculum development program on NGOs, public trust. They're important players. Not all NGOs are social enterprise and not all social enterprise are NGOs. Once we debate this proposition, then I think some clarity will come. Then what do we cover in the curriculum like this? How do we teach this? How do we do research on NGO? Because IIM Bangalore did start 20 years ago. Professor Geeta Sen was there. Now, but unfortunately, you see, these things are started and then they are routinized, you know. No other IIMs took up this. And therefore, but we should not confine to IIM. Right? Every institution is important. Every institution is capable, provided those capabilities are recognized early and faculty members are encouraged to engage in research or teaching. So NGO and public trust, very important. Why some NGOs are doing good and why some NGOs are not doing good. So for public policy must, government policy must. We have only two documents on NGOs, 2007 by Planning Commission and 2015 by Niti Aayog. A very general narrative of NGOs, but nothing substantive, nothing. We do not know what NGO, 3 million NGO, 5 million, but what are they doing? What are the issues? Only time we hear about NGO that they don't have funding now. That is a very elementary way to look at it. It's not research based. Funding nahi hai to kya hua? They don't need funding. NGOs, if you start NGO, then it's your moral responsibility to manage funds. Then there is also a question on chambers of commerce. They have a role to play in public policy for social enterprise. But I have been a member of CII committee and SOCM, FICCI, and various chambers of commerce on corporate governance, CSR, this, that, and other, but they have never ever talked of social enterprise. Though they talk women entrepreneur and things like that, but they never talk of social enterprise as an alternative to government failure and market failure. Why? They are a powerful group. I even went to Marathwada Chamber of Commerce, a very nice office, excellent people in Pune. You know? Pune happens to be my favorite place despite Corona. So I went to Pune and I talked to some of them. They're very, very good set of people. But this is the first chamber, and I request those of you who are from Pune, please visit them. This is the first chamber of commerce in India devoted to agriculture. Most industry chambers are devoted to industry, FICCI, associate, but this has specialized in agricultural sector. So please, when you can Pune, you will visit after Corona. Now, so the chambers also can play a role provided somebody takes that leadership role. Public policy is not a function of bureaucracy. It can come from the street. It can come from common man. It can come from chamber. Institutions must contribute to public policy. SEBI is doing for listed companies, for example. Now, I also move to another area, and that is whether there is a problem of formulating public policy. Yes, there is a problem. And problem is at what stage of life cycle do we formulate public policy? The startup stage, growth stage, maturity stage, and decline stage or saturation stage. They're like product life cycle. My own reading and my own understanding of literature and my interaction with several people say that government policy should be available or formulated during the stages of growth and maturity in the product like organization life cycle. That is where they would need resource support, they will need institutional support, they will need stakeholder support, where they look to outside players for support, and that is very important. The policy can be between growth and maturity stage. Because if you introduce policy very late at saturation, decline stage is too late. The textile industry is a classic case. We waited, traditional textile industry, export advantage, everything gone. We lost jute industry, we lost textile industry. Hundreds of mills have been closed because you did not have, between growth and maturity of textile industry, India should have done it 50 years ago, they did not. So life cycle of a company or industry in which I will introduce public policy. It cannot be at any time It's not a cinema ticket. 4 shows are available every day. No, it's not that. I think this is a very important point in public policy that we need to look at some of this. Now let's come to the next area. It's the implementation part of it. I think this is where a lot of problems come. And in another 10 minutes, I will stop because I expect this is I suspect this is an adult education program, and I suspect all of you adults don't mind my language. I have a habit of saying this. If you are adults, when you say adult education program, then let us have question answer. So in 10-15 minutes, I'll close my Harikatha and move on. But the next point is implementation of public policy. And there we come to barriers, social barriers, institutional barriers, environmental barriers, psychological barriers, all sorts of barriers we come across. Legal barriers, cultural barriers. But these are there in every industry. Maybe in some intensity of these barriers and the effect may be varying from textile to electronic to IT, etc. But they are there. But social enterprise faces a lot of these barriers because what is a social enterprise? It's selling of a concept. And when you sell a concept, like a faculty, you sell a concept, people don't understand easily. It takes maybe 10 years, 15. When I started corporate governance in 1999, I was the first professor in India to start a regular teaching, a course and national seminar for CEOs in India. I did my Bombay financial sector. So conceptually, I was only selling concepts. Then I started CSR in 2001. Nobody was taking it seriously. Even now, people are not taking it seriously, but that's okay. That's a cultural problem. So the point is that you have to sell the concept that what is the social enterprise, how does it benefit. So that is on a mission mode, to take it as a movement. It is not an individual enterprise. It is not a small business. We don't need subsidies and incentives, which has harmed agriculture, which has harmed small industry. Today, small industry has completely lost because of excessive subsidy and government support. Same thing as agriculture, free water, free power. And now you see the problem in agriculture. We have destroyed these sectors without any effort. SME is finished. Agriculture is also finished because every successive government wanted to give free. Why should we? Then give me free water. I am a citizen of India. I also give free electricity. No, but I'm not given. They are given. I think this if public policy gives more distortion than value creation, then I think there is unequal outcome. So barriers have to be, but I find this social enterprise, we face cultural and social barriers, like JC industry, the sanitary industry, or any other social innovation. I remember Ford Foundation introduced smokeless chula, 15, Gurgaon. There's a lady I met. But she said that people are not buying. Rural areas want gas cylinder. They don't want. So stakeholders want more modern and convenient facilities and not smokeless chula, because chula is a chula eventually. So sometimes social innovation may not be acceptable because of this kind of hesitation. And also suspicion that it may not be a long-term benefit in all those. So information is not available. Same thing in IT products. I'm still not using social media. You may call me illiterate, you can call me uneducated. Well, I am uneducated. I don't care. I do not wish to enter the social media sector. First of all, I have enough problems in my life. I don't want to get into all those useless. Somebody called me yesterday saying somebody's marriage and video is available on WhatsApp. I said, mind your business. I'm not interested. If that person is married, it is his problem, not mine. How am I interested? I'm not. You call me antisocial, fine, but I don't. So my point is that we don't need sophisticated product from social enterprise. We need problem solving orientation and goods and services which will be useful to people. who can, for example, bottom of the pyramid market. Hindustan Lever in 2002 made losses. 5 years, they lost crores of rupees. They asked rural women to sell soaps, detergent, shampoos. Rural women had to be trained. They were not marketing people. But today it is successful. Project Shakti is a good case study. So Hindustan Lever created this value. So social enterprise is a corporate social enterprise, not individual, but it has done it. Now let's come to the last part. Implementation problems have to be solved, but my problem is also there is a problem of evaluation. I'll stop after this 5 minutes. It says, how do we evaluate government policy for social enterprise? By success, failure, what is your parameter? How do we? My simple answer is as follows. Does a social enterprise create value? If it does not, it's as simple as that. But then you must have parameters, you must have quantitative yardstick, you must, these days econometric model, I'm not educated, I don't. So you must have all those things, to support. Then many times, other question is asked on evaluating social enterprise policy. If I were in planning commission, fortunately for them, I was never there. I would ask this: does a group of social enterprises create value? I mean, create social capital, create intellectual capital, create human capital, and create environmental capital, ethical capital. If the five values are created, and it's a wonderful social enterprise. It is. Seva is a good example. Seva is a good example, both for scaling, which will come to later, but right now, public policy, Seva became an institution. It was an organization. You ask your principal and your director whether you are an organization or institution. The answer is very clear. An institution is a mature reflection of organization. So have you achieved maturity? MDI is still not an institution. I have served for 35 years. I would highest regard for that, for the institution, -6 people. So I'm saying that it is still not an institution. It is still an organization. It is stuck somewhere. It's a mature reflection. Unless you create, you are in academic colleges, institution. Unless you create these 5 types, you are also social entrepreneurs. If you don't create these 5 capitals, ethical, environmental, social, human, intellectual, then perhaps we have not done the job, including myself. And well, then of course you must have policy instruments on evaluation framework, how much of research goes into it. But the point is, too much on formulation is not good. We must focus on implementation. Well, I think I have broadly given this, but you can have question answer now. Can we have questions?
Good morning, sir. My name is Deepak Chauhan. I'm a PhD scholar.
Very good.
Sir, I'm doing PhD in social entrepreneurship only.
Excellent.
Sir, based on your experience, sir, what are the major barriers you have you have find out ki while formulating a policy for social welfare or for some adding some social value? What are the major barriers generally these things face, sir, at a policy level, sir?
It's a very good question because, as I said, I've discussed with the IAS officers, bureaucrats, joint secretaries, and some committees also. Main barriers are basically cultural, institutional, legal. Regulation is not much of regulation is available as on as of date today on small social enterprise. But we do not have designated institutional framework which can support social enterprise. Supposing I am a social entrepreneur or a group of 10 entrepreneurs in Satara and Nagpur district. We want advice from certain institutes. It's not available. So one is the institutional capacity to counsel, advise, and guide small entrepreneurs. That is not a social entrepreneur is not available. Second is regulation, of course, is not there because case by case regulation can be there. And but regulation will come when a small enterprise joins a large enterprise. For example, if I am a supplier to MNC or a Hindustan Lever or a big Birla company, then I am an associate firm of that group. And if that group is regulated in terms of environmental, etc., then I am automatically, as a supply chain partner, I am also regulated to some extent. So I will not say that there is absence of regulation, but there is remote regulation if you are a supply chain partner. This is very important. So that extent, but there are also barriers of diffusion of knowledge. You know, see, a social enterprise is created for shared value. Having created value, I have to share my value with the larger section of society. And for that, I need not only IT platform, but I need a certain dialogue. And I think this also is to great extent not available. As I said, it is not telling success stories. I don't read the website because I'm so fed up. Even in MDI, we say so many things. We don't do many things. All website, sorry to say, Dr. Pranjal, you are an IT professor, but all websites are ardhasatya. आपको याद नहीं है मेरे जमाने में भी एक पिक्चर आई थी?
I know, sir. I've seen that movie.
अर्धसत्य.
Yes.
हाफ ट्रूथ्स. तो अर्धसत्य होता है कि भाई हम ये कर रहे हैं, वो कर रहे हैं, वो पॉलिटिकल प्रोपेगेंडा होता है. लेकिन मेरा कहना ये है कि आपको इंस्टीट्यूशंस, because a public policy for any sector, agriculture, financial sector, export, any sector, public policy has to be implemented by institutions. Government does not implement. Government only gives policy. Implementation is by institution, and that institution is either not performing or it is absent. So if you are working on barriers, please do so and we can interact, because barriers have not to be only identified, but we must find a solution. Supposing there are 10 types of barriers, we can construct a typology of barriers and find an equivalent solution for them. Excellent research paper can come out of this. Yes, thank you.
Sir, one more question. Actually, like
Yeah.
you have beautifully explained the difference between interest group and stakeholders, sir.
Yes.
Now, sir, as you rightly point out, a lot of people, a lot of institutions, they have different stakes when it comes to social enterprise. Like individual as a person or the people who are joining that social enterprise, they have different stake. Now, sir, you have given an example of Hindustan Unilever, sir. Now, Hindustan Unilever is the largest FMCG company, sir. And they, even though their Project Shakti and other projects, they have some social, they have added value to the society, but they have their inherent interest to earn profit in the long term, sir.
Fair enough. Because we go back to the basics of the classroom, how social enterprise is defined: for profit and not for profit.
Right.
So, example I give of Shakti project of Unilever was in India a corporate social entrepreneur, CSE. So CSE is a different category than an individual project like Gunj is collecting old clothes, NGO, recycling old clothes to needy people.
Sir.
That is, Gunj is a separate type, whereas individual social enterprise versus a corporate social enterprise. Corporate is likely to, because they have resources, they can afford 5 years losses.
Sir.
They lost heavily in first 5 years. Only 2007 they started making profit.
Sir.
They have the power to, muscle power to absorb losses. Unlike an individual, I must make reasonable profit to pay salaries to my staff, to other people. So I think this is the difference. But my argument is, and your good question is, that in aggregate terms, can we think of innovative resolution to barriers?
Sure.
Innovations in not only products of social enterprise, or services, but innovations, strategic innovation to deal with the barriers. And the focus of research should be on strategic innovation in barrier management, not removal of barrier, in minimizing the negative impact. अगर इतना भी करो तो आपका एक कैटेगरी में आ गया.
Sir, just
Sir.
one more question.
No, I have no problem. I till
Sir, one
11:15 I
more.
am ready to field as many questions as you.
Sir,
Other colleagues.
I'll not
Deepak
bother
ji,
much.
Deepak
I'll-
ji, yeah, we will get back to you. Another question which is coming
Yeah.
from Professor Swapnil, that what are the challenges can we expect in creating tourism cooperative?
Will you please repeat? Come again. Please repeat your question.
What are challenges can we expect in creating tourism cooperation?
Challenges in creating social enterprise.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, the first challenge is the self-motivation. If a person is not motivated, if he is not strongly feeling about, because
Sir,
there is a
sir.
market failure, there is a government failure, that area is open, nobody is helping. Now I want to enter that area and help. Now, unless that motivation, the determination is strong enough, no other work, even if I have money, even if a government policy is there, nothing will work because I'm not motivated enough.
Sir,
First challenge
Bakshi,
is that do I have the mental makeup? For example, there are in Bombay, there are consultants who are qualified in mental counseling. Mental health has become a major problem, not because of corona, because of developing country. Now, why mental health consultancy has come up? Because people individually feel self-empowered and motivated that no, mental counseling among students, among various stakeholders has become important. So I think the most important challenge is your self motivation, commitment, and you want to sacrifice something. If you don't sacrifice, you don't create value. Please remember, whether you are a faculty, you are a research assistant, or you are a director, or you are a World Bank president, you don't sacrifice, you don't create value. Full stop. Yes, please.
Bakshi sir.
Yes.
Yeah, I was asking about tourism cooperatives. Tourism cooperatives.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, what are the challenges that can come in creating tourism cooperatives?
Very
So,
good.
I would like to point out a couple of things. So, unfortunately, there are a few transport lobbies in our country,
Hmm.
and somehow it is difficult and challenging to break that. So, I mean,
Yes.
some points from your side on that, sir.
Yeah, certainly. Most definitely, I'll respond because I was only thinking recently when I was watching, I watch German, French, and Russian television, global news, and I found tourism police as a separate police force. They maintain heritage sites, museums. Even in France and Germany, when I visited 10 years ago, museums are they have separate security, separate police force. It's not general like Indian Railway has a railway police. Tourism, first of all, tourism needs a policy, a regulatory mechanism, and a security service, police service, whatever it is. That's what I'm saying. A public policy must create relevant, appropriate institutions for implementation. The police, the information centers, whatever, the manpower. We don't do this, and then we mix up everything. Why now the way protests are going on highways in India? Maybe in 5 years you will need an innovative policy on highway police, not city police. City police is busy with traffic signals and things like that, bicycle theft. But highway police we will need soon because if public protests are assuming alarming dimension, either you legally say that protests cannot be led by more than 5 people, but India is an overpopulated country. If 1,000 people get together, how do you impose Section 144? So see, depending on the intensity of the problem, you'll have to have innovative. So tourism is not Now, after 70 years, it took 70 years for the government to introduce charges for visiting Taj Mahal. No, I don't admire the monument. I didn't find it that great, but anyway, beauty lies in the eye of the beholder, they say. But anyway, वो ताज में अभी एंट्री फी किया, उसमें भी झगड़ा हुआ कि 5 रुपया कम करो. You see, you are not buying vegetable. You are maintaining, you are raising revenue to maintain monuments of public funds. Qutub Minar was closed for 20 years because young people frustrated in romance and love affairs went to commit suicide from Qutub Minar. It was a very ideal thing. The people had the courage to climb up Qutub Minar and commit suicide, a wonderful thing, but not for the family. So what my point is that heritage management, museums or tourism, hotels, entertainment, sport, tourism management has not been given its due share. So first of all, there are public policy angle, we need a lot of innovation. Secondly, institutional. We need Goa tourism now. Goa tourism also, you're facing a lot of problem these days, either environment or harassment. So tourism has social, and tourism is a social sector enterprise. So the hotels may charge, but there are A category hotel, B category, C category. So there is different types of stakeholder. Therefore, I will say that there is a certain need, and ultimately, you see, I have done all my life program for the World Bank, Asian Development Bank, all in those days. There was Siroc Hotel in Bandra. Now it is Taj Group. Now those days in 5-star hotel, there was hardly any security. Now, if I go to 9th floor of a Taj hotel in Bombay or Delhi, a private security man follows me, or cameras are installed, because now the security for tourists after the Taj accident in Bombay, act in Bombay, 9/11 or 26/11, it happens. So unless we have this kind of, because tourism is essentially, you are right, it is a social sector policy. It is nothing, for-profit company, obviously they have to make profit. They can't provide better services or for citizens or overseas guests. So I think tourism becomes very relevant. And finally, to close this point, in 2001, I went to Germany, three districts, three areas, Bonn, Berlin, and other places, and some nearby. And I find a wonderful innovation, which is very good in Europe. They have bed and breakfast hotel, no lunch, no dinner, so the overheads are less. बहुत कम manpower में beautiful 5-star hotel they're running. Why we don't have this? We either we have 5-star or dhaba highway pe wo roti sabji. We are extremist culture in that sense. We must have a medium category hotels. Now, of course, Oyo rooms and things have come, but these are one night kind of facility. They're not seriously. So we need economy hotels. You have to remember middle class. We've forgotten middle class. Yes, please.
Hello.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hello. Hello, sir. Good morning.
Yes.
Sir, I am Lenin Pant from Government Polytechnic, Nainital.
Yes.
Sir, my question is, in India, our experience is that too many times an ordinary person, take an example of Arunachalam Muruganathan, who is an ordinary man, but by invention of a machine, means to provide sanitary pads to our rural women, he has done something extraordinary. So,
Yes.
so many times our experience is that ordinary person is there, but doing some extraordinary work to have to maximize the social welfare. So my question is how we can be there to promote or to enhance our students. Means
Yes.
if we want to enhance the capability of social entrepreneurs, how can we do that?
Very good. Let me straight away put it like this. That we are all ordinary people. And we focus on output. The day we focus on outcomes, that is social impact, we become extraordinary. As simple as that. again I repeat, most of our institutions, most of government policies, most of our educational, say we are number 1, number 5, whole day goes in ranking and accreditation meeting and useless thing. Why? I can be good at number 9 also. Who is bothered about? I never bother about number 1. But MDI was obsessed. We want to number 5, number 6. I hardly matters. So the point is, therefore, you want output or you want outcome. An ordinary person focus is on output. 4 कोर्स पढ़ाया, 2 अखबार में आर्टिकल छापा और घर जाके सो गए हैं? आपने ये नहीं सोचा कि आप 60 साल पे अपने आप को पूछेंगे कि आपने क्या काम किया? You have to be accountable to yourself, and the once you say that no, I have produced output, now I want to move from output to outcome, means impact generation. Even if I do 5%, 10%, 20% impact means long-term outcome, favorable, beneficial. Sustainable development is an excellent example that you cannot achieve sustainable development by numbers. Numbers cannot. Like GDP growth of 3% or 4% is a number. It is output. Outcome will be your per capita income, your products availability, services, your standard of life, your various things, environmental management. The outcome is, an outcome makes you extraordinary. Output never makes you. You can produce 1 million shirts. You can never be, I cannot call you successful till you produce an impact. Impact is the ultimate achievement. Let me also philosophically close this argument on this note that in life, there are arrivals, there are departures. At my age, I still think I have not arrived. I have only reaching Bombay, Ludhiana, or Chandigarh, or Washington. I have reached. Reaching Dadar or Matunga is reaching. I have reached by suburban train or taxi or from Bombay airport, but I have not arrived. This is a conceptual and philosophical implication that I must arrive. Arrive means fulfillment of life's ultimate mission. I have not done it. Most of us don't do it. The moment you do it, if you arrive, that is extraordinary. And very few people can arrive, you see. You are right. But then we take lessons from them, at least go to the next immediate stage of arrival, if not complete arrival. Progress up to 50, 60, 70%. Nobody is perfect. Nobody can 100. In fact, I suspect students who get 100 marks out of 100. Recently, last year, somebody got 100 out of 100 in matriculation, the final exam of school. I don't believe it. It is impossible, but these things are happening, but they are not extraordinary people. They may have done very good in exam, but ask them to write an essay without any reference work, they will not be. So my point is this, that it is not a number, it is a durable, long-term fulfillment of a mission, whatever is the mission. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Yes.
Good morning, sir. Dipali here.
Yes.
Sir, I'm a research scholar and doing research in social entrepreneurship. So, sir,
oh, you also registered. You are registered for that.
Yes,
good,
sir.
Good. Yes.
So, sir, while going through stakeholders theory as well as while understanding the shared values and shared norms as a part of social capital, one question comes in while reading policy frameworks, there has been always that grassroots community had not been involved in policy framing, because policies are being developed at the upper level, maybe by the political agendas. Yeah, so maybe by the parties in force, so they create the policies. However, reaching it to the grassroots and acceptance by the grassroots community has been a challenge. So how that participation can be made of those grassroots community in policy framework is my question, sir.
Excellent. Now, two immediate responses. One is that some policies are also formulated by consulting grassroots level. For example, we have Gram Sabha village committees. And I have done a few case studies of multinationals, and I found that the Supreme Court and the High Court has made it mandatory for environmental clearance that unless Gram Sabha and village councils, the local panchayat and associated village bodies give clearance to the environmental issues, we will not process it. Ministry of Forest and Environment will not process application for environmental management or environmental policy at the company level if they have not consulted the local, that forests are destroyed or mountains or rivers are destroyed, things like that. So to some extent, there is a grassroots concept, though we do not have the concept of community enterprise like many other countries. But there is a dark side also. Well, this is possible in environmental management to some extent. So if you are a social enterprise working on environmental issues, perhaps yes. But in many cases, there is a dark side. A panchayat, for example, you have a very peculiar things like Khap Panchayat or your panchayat which is not officially recognized, and they take on all sorts of issues. Now, just as a militancy, as a protest. Now, panchayats are political, of course, but panchayats don't see. I have personal case study. I'll tell you in a minute. In about 20 years ago, I was invited by Airtel, Bharti Foundation, the CSR Foundation. I went to village Nimrana, 2 hours from Gurgaon. Nimrana is in Rajasthan. Government had abdicated. Government said, we can't run these schools. We have no funds. We have no teachers. Primary school. So Bharti Foundation, which is CSR, Airtel, they took up this challenge that we will run the school. I mean, the infrastructure was there, but teachers were not trained, uniforms were not given, and things like that. So I went along with the Bharti Foundation. We spent a day at Nimrana. They explained to me how they have done a turnaround. First of all, they created a dialogue between community and the girls. Girls should be sent to school. Girls were not going to school because that community in Rajasthan was saying girls will not go to the school. Full stop. So first of all, it was a very hard thing to convince them that girls need to go to school. Then they created infrastructure, water supply, hygienic conditions, uniforms, books, IT, even computer in 99, 2000 and so on. So I think this is an example of creating value where the challenge was at the grassroots level. So institutions like foundations, corporate foundations, NGOs, trusts who are very strong can take 3-4 years and turn around this. So government schools, primary schools are often managed by even Mahindra and Mahindra. They have done it, Nanni Kali program for girl child. I think there are enough examples. I mean, it is not that, but there is a dark side that local villagers will go. Last example, and I'll close this point. I can go on, but time is clicking. I was invited by Hindustan Copper, Calcutta. I went to Calcutta, I had a meeting, a general manager, a chairman, etc. Then they said, you go to that plant in Rajasthan, copper plant. So I went to copper plant. Those days we had ambassador car. So I was given ambassador car. I felt like a minister, 20 years ago, ambassador car में जाना एक status था. तो मैं गया तो वहाँ villagers वगैरह ने मुझे, they घेराउड my car. जनरल मैनेजर के बड़ी मुश्किल से अंदर पहुंचे. मैंने बोला भाई ये क्या है? बोला साहब आप दिल्ली से आए हो, उन लोग से आप मंत्रालय से आए हो, तो एम्बेसडर में आए हो तो आप गवर्नमेंट के आदमी. मैंने बोला भाई मैं तो मामूली सा टीचर. एनीवे, why they have objected? We don't want copper. Why we can't eat copper? There is no drinking water. There is no school. There is no public park. There is no electricity. Copper के क्या करना? But so that means there is a gap of understanding why copper plant cannot do CSR. So there is, अब वो बता रहा है कि भाई आप बताइए CSR के, ऐसे CSR नहीं हो सकता है, because water supply is a municipality function. A company cannot create water supply. तो ये मेरा कहने का ये है कि mismatch between local people and the provider of that service or product, whether it is a corporation or a BMC or an individual enterprise, for profit, non-profit, how do we close the gap, and the communication strategies, concept selling that provide at least 2-3 years before people understand you. Organization also. हमारे MDI में बहुत झगड़े हुए, तुम फाइनेंस एरिया किए, मैं मार्केटिंग कर, मैंने बोला आप ये क्या कर रहे हो, झगड़े बहुत हो, अभी भी हो रहे हैं। वो कह रहा है मैं फाइनेंस का है, तुम मार्केटिंग का है। मैंने बोला दुश्मन क्यों बन गए हो अपने आप को? You are all colleagues. I can also work in marketing if I have some interest. For example, I have guided 2 PhD students on brand equity, help them in literature survey, in questionnaire design. नोएडा में अभी they've done PhD. Brand equity, मुझे इंटरेस्ट ये था कि brand, who is creating brand? So in social enterprise भी ये क्वेश्चन आएगा, what is the brand equity of social enterprise? Who creates it? Who maintains it? Who promotes it? So I was interested in, so my point is that first thing in research, I don't think many people understand this, even faculty members, is asking questions. And I'm glad you people are raising so many questions. But or another 5 minutes before we close the first policy, including dark side evaluation. And then there is also, there are so many other things, but I don't want to do this. I want to only say this, that OECD has a good guideline on policy assessment, whether policy is successful or not, and how to measurement part, how to really say that this policy was good and this policy did not work. So this Atal Innovation, National Mission for Women and all the, you see, schemes and programs and budgets can come. But what is important for a social enterprise, they should never lose sight of, and that question on ordinary, extraordinary, that you are entering a field by your own choice, and therefore you have to become extraordinary. There is no question, there is no midway, there is no delete command. Once you have entered, you cannot go back. Yes, please, next.
Sir, one more question. Actually, since you have worked in the CSR area, sir, so how can CSR and social enterprises could be integrated so that we can have more social impact, sir?
No, I'm sorry. I'm very disillusioned. After 20 years and 2 research books funded by AICT, I have stopped accepting invitation on CSR lectures, primarily because CSR has fallen into wrong hands, both in industry, in public sector, in private sector, and consultancy. Any and everybody who can't do anything else goes into CSR. It's also dumping ground.
Sir.
अरे इसको CSR में भेज दो, काला पानी की, काला पानी में जाओ. So काला पानी treatment is not good. CSR is too serious a business to be left. पहले तो 10 साल मैंने मारुति का CSR डिजाइन किया है. I sat in Maruti factory for 15 days. मारुति को मैंने यही बोला था, 2001 की बात है. General manager was appointed from production. मैंने कहा इसको रूटीन मत बनाना, इसको नॉन रूटीन में ले जाओ, उसको इनोवेशन में ले जाओ. And do 2 schemes but 2 good schemes. अब क्या NTPC वगैरह मैं भी कमेटी में था, वो 50 स्कीम लाते हैं, पब्लिक सेक्टर है ना, प्रेशर है ऊपर से बोर्ड से, ये स्कीम लगाया वो, तो 40-50 ट्री करो. MDI ने 40 ट्री किया, आज 10 बिल्डिंग आ गया, ट्री खत्म हो गया. तो ट्री प्लांटेशन, पहले तो CSR क्या है वो समझ में नहीं आती. ट्री प्लांटेशन कर दिया, मंत्री को बुलाया, फोटोग्राफ आए, तो आपको वो फोटोग्राफ करना है तो अलग बात है, बट CSR इज नॉट फॉर सिनेमा, इट्स नॉट फॉर पिक्चर्स. CSR is a silent work. ONGC को बोला, ONGC के पास इतना पैसा है, हर साल 2000 करोड़ का है.
जी जी.
I told the chairman, I told the MD, अरे भाई थोड़ा मुझे रिसर्च के लिए नहीं दूंगा. NTPC I was the committee, I did not get it. मैंने कितना मांगा था मालूम है? 3 लाख. तो NTPC जैसी कंपनी को 3 लाख क्या होता है? बट वो बोले नो, we have to ask the board, there is no public sector, no प्रेसिडेंट नहीं. मैंने बोला तो ऐसा मुझे नहीं करना है, तो आप अपनी ही जो टीम बनाइए CSR डिपार्टमेंट, उसमें 2 लाख की रिसर्च करो, मुझे इनवाइट करो, आई हेल्प देम. भाई मेरा तो काम यही था कि भाई एनटीपीसी किस तरह से आगे बढ़े। मुझे तो पैसा मिलना नहीं है कि जो मिलेगा वो आधा एमडीए ले जाएगी। The point was, but somehow we are not reoriented to do research in CSR. इसलिए आजकल फ्री फॉर ऑल हो गया। From drinking water to everything is CSR में। अभी कोरोना के लिए फंड दिया, CSR हो गया 10 करोड़। आप आराम से वो गाजर मूली खा रहे हैं। अरे भाई आप कोरोना में डोनेशन दिया, doesn't stop you. You can still do. And secondly, non-performing companies like Air India is still doing CSR. आज दूसरे कंट्री में लोग फंस जाते हैं, एयर इंडिया अपना एयरक्राफ्ट बेच के फ्री में फोकट में लाता है, तो वो CSR ज्यादा कर रहा है तुमसे। So compared to profit making, Air India is doing more, though it is running losses because of this. But the point is, ये CSR को थोड़ा स्कीम करें, but CSR and social enterprise cannot be mixed up because CSR is a departmental. I'll close this argument. We can further interact whenever you want. Is this Wipro? I have visited Bangalore. I have visited Wipro chairman. I interviewed him 3 times. Wipro has a CSR department, company में.
Right.
But next building is Wipro Foundation. 140 लोगों को नौकरी दिया है, 150 का स्टाफ है. They have a director, a separate building. Foundation does all sorts of things. Social welfare, sustainable development, poverty, which a company cannot do.
Right.
Company is a budget CSR 2%, but foundation can ask others to raise funds. It can invite even competitors on your foundation. So like that. So CSR is better left to corporate. Social enterprise का, क्योंकि CSR does not create social value. CSR does not solve social problem. अगर सती और डावरी का एग्जाम्पल है, चाइल्ड मैरिज, what CSR can do? But a social enterprise can force government to pass a legislation in favor of a sector, like bottom of pyramid, or women, or disabled people, whatever. There are target groups. So if there are 500 social enterprises and they work for 10 years and give feedback to government, here is a policy gap, here is the data from our policy. So bottom up.
So, sir, we will take 15 minutes.